The 5 signs that your metabolism is fine, even if you think it's slow. Sean here from Fit Fusion Brotherhood. I own a gym for 10 years. I've coached thousands of clients, and one of the most common concerns that people have is that they have slow metabolism. And I've talked about this before. It is very possible to bring your metabolism down. It is very difficult to bring your metabolism up. So your metabolism doesn't necessarily drop with age like most of us think it does. Unless you're over the age of 60, this isn't going to happen naturally. However, there are some things that you can do that would bring your metabolism down, but these are self-inflicted wounds. So we're going to talk about 5 signs that your metabolism is actually fine. Now, when I go through this video, it's important that you go through your own internal audit and really question whether or not these things are related to you. But if these things do apply to you, there's a good chance that your metabolism is fine. So number 1 is you're in a stress intake mismatch. So this is when you think you're eating a lot less than you actually are because you have a stressful work life, personal life, just a stressful life in general. And what ends up happening is a lot of the stress can kind of crush that awareness. So you end up with some nibbles, some bites, you're snacking throughout the day, and you really haven't felt like you've been eating a lot. But if you were to actually calculate everything throughout the day, you would note that your calorie intake is a lot higher. So you're struggling with your weight, you feel like you can't lose weight, you feel like you're eating really well, you're not understanding why you're gaining weight even though your meals are so small. Chances are that this stress is kind of taken away from that awareness and your calorie intake is actually increased as a result. So if this is you, if you're a stress eater and you're frustrated with your weight gain, chances are you're probably just taking in more than you realize because it does really affect that awareness. Number 2, this one is super common for guys. Your weekends erase your week. So a lot of guys are really good Monday through Friday, dialed in. They're probably in a calorie deficit. Your nutrition's on point. You're working out. Everything is just going great. And then you feel so accomplished by what you've done through the week that you allow yourself to kind of let loose a little bit on the weekend, which is totally fine. But a lot of guys don't realize how easy it is for 2 or even 1 days to totally offset the 5 good days that you had throughout the week, because our body doesn't look at things in terms of good versus bad days. You could have 5 or even 6 good days and 1 bad day, and that bad day, when I say bad day, I just mean a lot more food, can actually override all of the other good days. So even though you feel like you've been super consistent 80-90% of the time, that 1 day where you just kind of let loose can easily override the other 5 or 6 days. So the good news here is that your metabolism isn't broken if this is you. The chances are you're just allowing yourself to go a little bit too extreme on that 1 day. And it's a pretty easy fix. Just reel it back a little bit. No one's here to say that you can't have a little bit more fun during the weekends and eat a little bit more, but you have to have some sort of structure or some sort of guidance to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. Okay, so one of the most common things that guys do is they just allow that weekend to go out of control and then it erases the rest of the week. Okay, so this is a sign that your metabolism is just fine. Number 3, you've lost muscle without realizing it. So this is a sign that your metabolism is actually taking a dip, but it's something that you can control. It's not something that just happened naturally. When you're younger, it's a lot easier to build muscle. As you get older, it's a lot more difficult to build muscle. And unless you're actively lifting weights and prioritizing your protein, over time that muscle mass is going to decrease. So if you're over the age of 30 and you're not strength training regularly, yes, your metabolism is probably taking a hit, but that's because you have not emphasized strength training. The good news is it's a pretty easy fix, right? You start lifting 3 to 5 days per week with progressive overload. Make sure you challenge yourself, lift heavy enough that you can actually build muscle, and then you'll notice that your metabolism starts to come up again. Because we always talk about this, muscle is one of the few things that is metabolically active, meaning it requires energy and calories just to sustain life. So the guys that have the most muscle also tend to have the faster metabolism. So if you're not lifting, if you're not prioritizing muscle, you've probably lost a little bit of muscle, and as a result, your metabolism has had a hit. But the good news is you can bring it right back up by making sure that you introduce some of those healthy habits into your routine. Number 4, your NEAT has dropped. NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This basically just says how much you're moving outside of exercise. Now, as you get older, you probably get busier, you have more responsibilities in life, which means you won't be able to just casually get out and move around a lot more like when you were younger. So as a result, you burn fewer calories. Now, you may chalk this up as metabolism, but it's really not. It just means you're moving less. And the less you move, the fewer calories you burn. The fewer calories you burn, the more difficult it is to lose weight. So if you feel like you're moving less, the more important thing to do here is take a concerted effort to actually go for your walks, maybe track your movement, track your steps, and ensure that you're getting those 10,000 steps per day. Now, if that's too much, start low and gradually build up. But if you feel like you're not moving enough, it's a very easy fix to just bring that movement up and help your energy expenditure throughout the day, and you'll realize your metabolism is just fine. And then number 5, you expect fat loss to feel easy. Just because it feels harder doesn't mean that something is wrong. You tend to kind of compare it to what it was when you were a kid or when you were younger and you were super active, moving around all the time. You had a ton of energy, recovery was great, didn't have a responsibility in the world. It was easier to build muscle. All of these things definitely help. And now it's not that easy. But that doesn't mean that your metabolism has gone down. That just means that you're an adult now. You have more responsibilities. You're not moving as much because you have work, because you have to take care of other things. It's more difficult to build muscle now. Recovery is a little bit more challenging. All of these things are true. But just because it's more challenging doesn't mean that there's an underlying issue. It just means that you need to acknowledge that things are different now than when you were younger. And it's not necessarily your metabolism. These are things that you can control, right? So it can go any of the previous things that we talked about. It can be moving more throughout the day. It can be prioritizing strength training. It can be being more conscious with your nutrition intake. All of these things are going to make fat loss a lot more simple. Rather than just chalking it up to being older and having a slower metabolism, it's much easier to acknowledge that things aren't going to be easy, but you do have control. And when you have control, it's an absolute clear pathway to get to that fat loss that you've been trying to get. So the good news is, if you've resonated with any of these, chances are your metabolism is just fine. It's usually some sort of behavioral issue that you need to get under control, which is a good problem to have. So if you enjoyed this video, if you do enjoy videos like this, do us a huge favor, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.